Alright, these are our notes for section 4.2 on angles and triangles, and we're going to focus on two big ideas, but everything we're going to do today is we're just going to be finding missing angles of triangles. You may just have one triangle in a picture, you may have 4 or 5 in a picture, but your goal is to find the missing angles, whether they be numbered angles or have variables in there or an expression in there. You have to find the missing angles, okay? Now, there is a big idea that you have to know today, and I told you it in the last video. It's the fact that all the angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. That is always true, okay? Any 3 angles in a triangle will always add to 180, okay? It's a fact. They always equal 180. It's never going to change. Now, it's different than a scaling perimeter example, which we did the other day, because that number is going to change. The perimeter of a triangle can always be something different, but the angles in a triangle will always add to 180 degrees, and we're going to use that fact today. Now, that does have a name. It's called the angle sum theorem, that idea. You may see that written somewhere, but I just want you to remember the big idea, that the angles in a triangle add to 180. We're going to use that for the rest of the year, so keep that in mind, okay? We've got 2 examples here. Our first example says, what is x? And we have a triangle. One of our angles is 70, the other one is 85, and we need to find that third angle. Easy way to do this. There's 2 ways you could do it. Both of them are acceptable. Some people will add these 2 angles together, 70 plus 85, and you would get 155. And then they take 180 minus 155, and that would give you an answer of 35. And that's one way to find x. That's perfectly acceptable. That's a good way to do it, and that's how you would solve these problems. All the angles in there have to add to 180, so if I add the 2 angles I know together and then subtract them from 180, I get the right answer. That does it too. Some people like to take 180 and they just subtract 70 and then they subtract 85, which is essentially the same thing. It's really just how you want to put it in the calculator. If you want to subtract the numbers from it, or if you want to add them first and then subtract. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer either way, okay? But that's the general idea of what we're going to do today. The whole triangle has to add to 180, so you take what you know and you figure out the missing number, okay? Our second example here is a little different. That first example only had 1 triangle. This one has 2. Alright, so if we look, we have the first question says, what is y? Well, y is right here. We know this angle is 25, and this angle here has that box in it, which means perpendicular. Now, if you remember what perpendicular means, it means that that angle is 90 degrees. Okay, that means those lines intersect and they make a right angle. So we're going to do the same thing we did in that first example. We're going to add those 2 numbers together, 90 plus 25. When we add them together, we get 115. We do 180 minus 115, and we get 65. And there's the answer to the problem. It's that easy, okay? Now to find z, that's the second question. If we look at our triangle for z, we have z and we have the 30. We don't know what this angle here is. If we think back to what we've learned, and this is going to show up today, that's vertical angles with that 90 degrees, which means that they're congruent. So this one is also 90. That's going to be a big idea today, okay, vertical angles. So that one's 90. We do the same thing. This time, though, it's 90 plus 30, which is 120. 180 minus 120 gives us 60. So there's z. Z is 60. So that's something I want you to watch out for. Let's put a star down here. Vertical angles. Something that's going to show up today in your homework and throughout these notes. Okay, so remember those. Next, we got a couple of definitions. First thing, we've got a picture over here. Okay, and I'm going to label these definitions in this picture. So, an exterior angle. It is outside of a triangle formed by extending one side. Okay, so if we look, we've got our triangle, our arrow's pointing at our triangle. We've extended the side out, so our exterior angle is right here. Okay, it's outside of the triangle, and it's formed by one side being drawn longer, and then the angle that's formed there between the sides of the triangle and the side that's got extended. The remote interior angles are the other two angles not touching the exterior angle. Okay, so these are our remote interior angles. Okay, they aren't touching. Let's circle them too. We've got arrows pointing at them when we've got them circled. They aren't touching that exterior angle. Okay, so the exterior angle's outside, and then the remote interior ones are the two angles that aren't touching that exterior angle. Okay, now we've got a big idea. This big idea, and it's meant to be a shortcut there, and I'll show you why it's a shortcut here in a minute with an example, but it's meant to be a shortcut. It says that the sum of the two remote interior angles is equal to the measure of the exterior angle. Alright, let's talk about what that means. We've got a picture here. Here's my remote exterior angle. Here are my exterior angle. Here's my remote interior angles. These two angles added together equal this angle over here. Okay? So, and it's meant to be a shortcut. We're going to do an example. We've got a question mark on our exterior angle, and we've given measures to our two remote interior angles. So what we can do, if I want to know what the exterior angle is, I just add 82 and 37 together, and I get 119. Okay, so there would be our exterior angles measure, 119. That's one way to find it. Now, you don't have to find it that way. This is meant to be a shortcut. You can do it in two steps. If we forget about the exterior angle for a second and we just look at our triangle, I'm just going to redraw the triangle right here. And I didn't do a good job. But that's 82 and this is 37. Let's find this missing angle of our triangle. Okay? Well, that would be 82 plus 37 is 119, and then we would have 180 minus 119. And when we subtract that, that missing angle is 61. Okay? Now, if you these two make a straight line, they're supplementary, which means that they would add to 180. So if I know that that angle inside the triangle is 61, I just do 180 minus 61, and I get 119. That is another way to find the answer. Again, the remote exterior angle idea is meant to be a shortcut. You don't have to solve it that way. You can do it in two steps. You can find the third angle of the triangle and then do 180 minus that because they're a straight line. And that works also. So whichever way is more comfortable for you, that's the way I want you to solve it. We're going to move on to an example now. And our example says determine the measures of each numbered angle. And we're going to use the two ideas we talked about today. The fact that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. That's really important. Okay? So under ideas to remember, 180 degrees in a triangle. We can also use that exterior angle idea in remote interior. Okay? A few other ideas that might show up that you need to be familiar with. We said one earlier, vertical angles. Vertical angles are going to be really important, especially when you have more than one triangle in a picture, and there's intersecting lines making that X shape. And the idea is supplementary. That angles that form a straight line add to 180. Okay? So we're going to find 5 numbered angles. We've got them circled in our picture. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they're listed over here. We want to find the measures of those angles. Okay, we're going to start with 1. It's always a good idea to go through in order. Now, you may have to jump around if you get stuck, but it's always a good idea to start with number 1. Okay? Well, if we look, that's an exterior angle to this triangle. Okay? And these two would be the remote interior angles. So according to that idea, that theorem that we just talked about, the exterior angle is equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. So we could say 50 plus 78, that is 128. That would be angle 1. It's one way to find it, okay? It's the easiest way to find it. That's that shortcut. Now, you could figure out that missing angle. You could figure out what this is if you wanted to. And then subtract 180 that from 180 to get angle 1. That works the same way, okay? But that exterior angle idea is a shortcut. Now, to get angle 2, if we look, angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, which means they add to 180. So if I know angle 1 is 128, I'm going to say 180 minus 128, and that equals 52. So there's angle 2, 52 degrees. Okay, so far so good. We found 2 of the 5 angles. Angle 3 is way up here. Now we know one of the angles in the triangle. We need to know the other. This one here. If we look, well, this is 120. So I can say 180, because they make a straight line, just like they did on the other side with angles 1 and 2. 180 minus 120 equals 60. So that's this angle here, 60 degrees, because they make a straight line. Now, if we're going to figure out angle 3, there's 180 degrees in a triangle. I'm going to number these. Here's to find angle 1. This was to find angle 2. Angle 3 had 2 parts. Okay, the first thing we had to do is find that missing angle of the triangle. And the second thing, the 3 angles add to 180, because they're all in a triangle. So 52 plus 60 equals 112, and then you have 180 minus 112, and we end up getting 68. So there's angle 3, 68 degrees. Angle 4, it's vertical angles with that 60 degrees. Okay, and we said vertical angles are always going to be congruent. Now you could use that idea of supplementary, that the 140 and the angle 4 make a straight line, so I could do 180 minus 120, and I could get angle 4. But since we already found the one across from it, we're just going to say it's 60 because it's vertical angles. Forgot to add angle 3 in there, 68. Alright, now to find angle 5, it's an exterior angle again. Okay, and if it's an exterior angle, that means the sum of the two remote interior, 60 and 56, there are remote interior, is going to be what angle 5 is. Well, 60 plus 56 is 116, so there's our third angle, 116 degrees. Now again, you could have found the third angle in the triangle, okay? This angle here, we could have figured it out to be 180 minus 116. That's going to be 64. So it's 64 degrees. And then you could have used the idea of supplementary. Well, they make a straight line, so 180 minus 64 gives us 116. It's either way is acceptable. It just depends on whether you see that shortcut or not. Okay, so there's an example of how to find all the angles in a triangle, or in a set of triangles. And that's what you're going to be doing on your homework when you get to class. So if you have any questions, bring them to class next time. I will put another example up underneath this so that you can work through it. But remember these ideas, and if you have to go back and look at them again, do that in your notes. Remember the ideas of vertical angles and supplementary, and then the two ideas we learned today. 180 degrees in a triangle, and the exterior angle equals the sum of the two remote interior angles. So if you have any questions, again, either rewatch the video or bring them to class next time.